Hello, this is Arlo Kilpatrick, the erudite Clinophile, and welcome to my channel. I chose the name because it concisely describes this channel's purpose, to provide rational arguments and well-researched insights into the phenomenon of zoophilia. Some of you will be wondering what I'm talking about. What is zoophilia or kinophilia? Well, kinophilia is a common form of zoophilia, sexual attraction to certain kinds of dog. Some people claim that zoophilia is morally wrong for a number of reasons, but my goal here is to examine those reasons, and hopefully show them to be fallacious, or be shown to be wrong in my view, that acting on sexual urges toward non-human animals is morally defensible, and perhaps in certain circumstances even admirable. Before I go on to examine some of the more difficult arguments against sex with non-human animals, I'd like to discuss some of the worst. Not even arguments, really, just phrases which are supposed to stop all conversation on the subject. First, let's talk about the idea that zoophilia should be illegal because of a particularly heinous instance of it. The death of Mr. Hands in 2005 is an example that's often brought up. This is equivalent to saying that ordinary heterosexual procreative sex should be illegal because of a particularly gruesome rape. We can distinguish between the most horrible cases, which we all agree should be illegal, and the majority of cases where no one is harmed and both parties are enjoying themselves. We can prevent abuse without a totalitarian edict that all sex of a certain kind is wrong, simply by making it illegal to harm creatures in certain circumstances, or even in all circumstances in some more liberal interpretations of animal rights. Since we're discussing morality, religion often comes up as a justification for all moral rules, including the prohibition of bestiality. For the sake of full disclosure, I should mention that I do not subscribe to religious views, although I don't begrudge those who do, so long as they leave me in peace. But this justification is weak in that religious beliefs have not been shown to be accurate enough that we should take the word of any self-proclaimed prophet as holy writ. If you have a religious justification for your morals, then that's fine, but until I'm convinced that your religious beliefs are true, I'm no more required to submit to them than I am to the Silmarillion or the Iliad. Since we live in a mostly secular society, our laws need to have some secular justification, and cannot be derived from the authority of any god or prophet, if they are to be followed by everyone. A lot of the reason people are disgusted by zoophilia is due to an ideal known as human exceptionalism. The idea that people are somehow higher or grander than other species and should not interact so closely with other species. This idea, I believe, has two fatal objections. One is that the theory of evolution by natural selection disproves the notion of a fundamental difference between humans and other animals. There are differences, to be sure, but they're not insurmountable, and the commonalities far outnumber them. Another is that thanks to the domestication of other species by humans, human beings have already eroded any potential barrier between themselves and certain other species. We eat their flesh, drink their milk, live with them as pets or livestock. Human beings undoubtedly show an emotional connection with other animals, and these other animals, dogs and horses especially, seem to reciprocate this connection. Is it really that much of a stretch that our relationships to these creatures might become sexual in nature? One more thing before I close this video. This attraction to dogs is not something I can change or turn off. It is my sexual orientation, developed when I was a teenager and only hardened in the years that have followed. Even if my kinophilia is shown to be morally reprehensible, even if these are the ravings of an obsessed lunatic, I will still have these feelings, and will have to find some way to cope with them. I hope that you, my audience, can understand where I'm coming from, even if you disagree with me. I plan to release videos discussing arguments for and against zoophilia, news items about it, perhaps even the overall framework I use to derive my views on the subject. I have a definite emotional bias, but I'm not immune to reason, so please, if you think there's a good reason for the prohibition of zoophilia, tell me about it in a comment or video, and I'll address it if it's interesting enough to warrant a response. Thanks for watching.